Hi, everyone, and welcome to my channel and to my live. I am Coach Sherry, and this channel is about workforce development, career readiness, entrepreneurship, real life, real issues, and real talk. It's been a minute since I've been on here and live since completing that 90-day everyday live challenge. This is my live. It's also my podcast, Real Talk with Coach Sherry. And so I am excited to be here with you tonight. It's been a lot going on since my last live, but I was looking at some videos today, and I don't know if you all are familiar with the Bonics. I really enjoy them. They are a married couple. He is actually from Jamaica. She's from here, the US. They live in North Carolina. So I enjoy watching their videos because some of the places that they go, I am familiar with. We don't live too far apart. And I was looking at a video that they had done live. I would have loved to have been part of their live, but it was recorded about a couple of weeks ago, I want to say. And that's the other great thing about YouTube. Yes, of course, they recommend things that are happening right now, currently. You know, some people are on the fence on are lives worth it, because a lot of times people don't look at a live that is not live, a live that's recorded, but I do. And so I was glad to catch that live that they had recorded a couple of weeks ago. And it was about, the question was, should you live together before marriage? And so that's why I have this Saturday Night Live, and the title is Living Arrangements. That's a question that I wanted to pose out here. Do you think that you should live together before marriage? Now, there are a lot of different opinions about that, for different reasons, and I get it. And, some people will say, well, I have old fashioned ideals or values, or it just depends on the circumstance. And I understand that way that housing is going. Some people need a roommate. And if you so happen to think that you're going to marry that person, why not let them be your roommate? So there's a lot of different reasons why people will live together before marriage, and there's a lot of reasons why people don't. So I just kind of wanted to have that conversation tonight about living arrangements. Now, I have to say, I've been married for 29 years, and I was 25 years old. My husband was 26 years old when we got married. And I definitely have old school values when it comes to that. And I know that those values were greatly instilled in me. I just remember having cousins that lived out of state, and when they would come to visit, and especially when they were engaged, hey, Ella Queen, salute. Great to see you. Hope everything's going well. I believe you had a birthday not too long ago, so I want to wish you a happy belated birthday. Hope you had a great time. I have to come and check you out. I had some very early mornings last week, so I wasn't able to catch any of your lives. But I'm talking about living arrangements, and if you believe that you should live, or if you're okay, are you okay with living with your future spouse before marriage? But I remember my cousins, they were much older cousins, and they would come to visit us because they would want my parents to meet their fiancés, and they were engaged and everything. And typically they would stay at least one night with us. And my mother was not having it. She was not letting them stay in the same room. And usually it would be my female cousins, and they're bringing the man that they're going to marry. My mother would always have me sleep in the room with my female cousins, I guess, to make sure that nothing would happen in the middle of the night, and would have their fiance sleeping in another room in our house. And so I um I always thought that was interesting, but because that's how I grew up, I didn't find it to be weird. And oh, good. You said, yes, coach. Thank you so much for the greetings. Absolutely, Ella Queen. Salute. Absolutely. I hope you're doing well. I know it's probably early where you are, since when it's morning for me, it's usually evening for you. So since it's late night for me, it's probably early morning for you. And I'm glad that you were able to stop by and make yourself seen in the chat. So thank you. So, I grew up like that. And only reason why I thought it was interesting, because I always had to give up my room, because I had to sleep wherever the female cousin was sleeping, and that was the part that I found interesting, but I didn't find it to be weird. And then as I got older, and especially when I started dating my husband, and he had a condo, and so I would visit his condo. He would also come to my parents, when they would have events, or just he and I would just sit and talk, or whatever, but it was nothing major. He never came to my bedroom when we were dating, nothing like that. But I just remember, still having that, even though he has his own place, he was making his own money, I was making my own money. I never thought that I would want to live with him prior to marriage. And I didn't, and I know that there's a lot that you can learn about a person, when you do live with them. But I feel like sometimes, even with that, even if you are engaged and you end up living together before the marriage, a lot of times people prolong when the wedding date is going to be. They always move it. Something happens, life happens, commingling of the funds, and maybe a new bill came up, or something like that. And hi, Sassy, how are you? Good to see you. And so then they postpone the wedding, and they postpone it so long until they've been living together, and they'll look up, it'll be 5 years, 10 years, and they never got married. However, I feel like when you aren't dwelling together, it makes it more of an urgency, if that's what you really want, if that's the person you want to be with, because you do want to be with them on a day-to-day basis. And it's about not making it so easy too. So I'm glad you're doing well. So one of the things, and I'm gonna share this, when I dated my husband, and of course we were both grown, making our own money. He was playing in the league at the time. I would never spend the night over at his place, never. I still lived at home after college. I moved back home. I worked in Manhattan, and I commuted. And I was very fortunate because, listen, to live in Manhattan or any part of New Jersey where I was from is very expensive, even back then. And so, yes, absolutely. I still lived at home. My parents, they were not the type of parents that will put the boat lock on if I wasn't home by a certain time. My parents were very liberal and relatively free spirited. They didn't ask me where I was going. If I was going out, I just left. They weren't checking me like that. So it wasn't like something they told me I couldn't do. It was just something out of respect that I never wanted to do. I didn't want to be coming home with the sun and my neighbor seeing that, and it's just, I just didn't think that would be appropriate. And my husband respected me enough to adhere to that. He wasn't kicking and screaming when he would have to bring me home 2 o'clock in the morning, 1 o'clock in the morning. He wasn't like, oh man, I gotta, it was just like, okay, I get it, and that's what we did. And we dated for 3 years before getting married. And so that was just a respect piece for me. Um, and I wanted my marriage to be special, just like I wanted our honeymoon to be special. I always traveled, before marriage, after marriage, all of that. But even before marriage, I would go to Bahamas, Jamaica, Bermuda, just different places. I love to travel, but I would never want to necessarily travel with him. He didn't travel as much, and so I never wanted that kind of experience with him as my boyfriend. I was like, this is traveling to beautiful places and such. I always felt I wanted to do that, with my spouse. And I know that's probably ultra, ultra old fashioned, especially for the way times are today. People, they travel, they, no matter how many different, people that they're dating, they'll just go with them and that's it and have that experience. But I always felt like, going out of the country, especially, is a special thing to do and to experience something so beautiful as you would experience when you do go and see these tropical islands. And I just felt like it needed to be with my lifelong partner. And so no matter how close you may be with someone that you're dating, there's no guarantee that they're going to be your lifelong partner. Heck, at this point, the way divorce rate is, even if you're married, there's no guarantee. But at least with marriage, it is definitely something that's set a little bit more in stone. It's a little more formal and, signed, sealed, and delivered. So the first time that he and I went on a significant vacation was our honeymoon, and it was extremely special. And it was at a place that I never ever been before, and he's never ever been before. So that was our first time. It was a place that nobody we ever that we knew even have gone before. So it was definitely a special place. But in terms of living arrangements, so I never stayed over in that way. Didn't have things, I didn't have toiletries over at his house or a condo. I didn't have clothes there or anything like that because that was his place. Now, when we got engaged, it was still the same thing. I still felt the same way. And that's why when we got married and when we did live together, it to me it felt so permanent. It felt so right and new. It wasn't like, oh, we've been living together. It doesn't feel any different. And I do know people that have lived together before getting married. And then once they get married and people are like, okay, like, how is it? And they're like, oh, it's really not much different than when we before marriage. And I wanted after marriage to feel different. And so for me, not living together made our marriage different than when we were just boyfriend and girlfriend. It Because we didn't have children yet too, it felt like I was living with my boyfriend because we were still young. We were still doing similar things, going out and, going out to restaurants, going to the movies, going to the plays, going to family and friends' homes, doing day things, day trips or whatever, going away. But this time, he's not dropping me off somewhere else. We're going back to our home together. And that was really special. I mean, yeah, if you live with someone, they may have some habits that may or may not be acceptable or comfortable for you. Maybe they don't make their bed first thing in the morning or don't wash all the dishes. But those are simple things. Those are things that you can either work through or, you can maybe just maybe have a different perspective of it, look at it in a different way because that's not something that's worth breaking up over if you like and love that person. And, we all have habits that maybe get on someone else's nerves. So the things that you see someone else do that you don't prefer, you're like, oh, I hate when they do this, or oh, I can't stand it. Oh, just when he just really works my nerves when they do this. Well, guess what? There are things that you do, I'm sure, that gets on their nerves too. So that's another reason why premarital counseling is so important so that you can learn to work through those things because those are very simple, minute things that, over the whole scheme of or the realm of a marriage, those things are minor. So, it's really about just knowing that you're cohabitating. This is, your partnership, and your partnership is much deeper than like a regular business partnership or anything like that. This is a lifetime partnership where you're going to grow and develop together. And even if you don't grow and develop together at the same time, you still are. But this is the person that you look at and you say, I love you for life. And, how are we going to live through this as well? you know. But I do feel that, living together puts the cart before the horse in many cases. And then, there are people, of course, as you get older and you start to acquire things of your own. I definitely think if you are in a situation where you can afford to purchase your own home, do so. And don't worry about, oh, I want to purchase a house, but I may meet someone, or the person I'm dating doesn't own their own home and I don't know what's going to happen after that. No, I say purchase that home. Do what you can, because you just never know. First of all, tomorrow is not promised, and if you're just dating that person, tomorrow's not promised. So, do what you can, for yourself, and that actually makes you even that much more attractive, not just for a financial piece, but just to show that you are independent and can do things on your own, and you're innovative and you're forward thinking. But, if you have your own home, they have their own home. At that point, you can determine, do you want to, move in together in one of the two homes, or do you want to purchase a new home altogether? I would look at it like, if I had my own home when my husband and I got married, then he would either move. It depends on the size and how my home accommodates, and how his versus his home. But whose ever home accommodates the two of you together best, that's the one you would move into. But say, for instance, if we decided to move into his home, then I would have used my home as a rental property. Especially if it's not something I'm renting but I own, I would use that would be our first investment property. You can decide to just keep it in your name and do it that way, or if you want to commingle your investments, then do that. I would recommend to keep it in your name, and that will be your side investment. But, and then moving forward, any investments, since you're now married, then you would do those together. But I would definitely look at it that way. And then maybe in the future, you would move on from his place. Then he could rent out his home. And then that would be his initial, his one investment, and then you have your one investment, and then again together y'all would purchase your investments from that point on together. But I also understand, you know, the way that, housing is now, with it being so expensive. A lot of people are finding themselves with roommates, not necessarily people that they're in a relationship with, but they have roommates to be able to afford where they live, because it can be very expensive, rent and the cost of living, food, all those things. And so they are like, whew, let me, get a roommate. And what better roommate, than someone that you are dating? Because now, if you live together, you don't have to worry about gas, going out to pick them up, or them coming to you. You're right there together. But even at that, is it just a business transaction, or is it that relationship that you really are wanting to develop and blossom and evolve? And also, how do you evolve from that? Um, do you, after marriage, continue on as if you are roommates versus in a relationship? So those are things that you have to consider. But I do know, especially people that are a lot older, more seasoned and mature in age and experience, they find that having a separate homes is the best. But I'm gonna tell you, there are some times when, yeah, they have separate homes, and then they get married and they keep their other home, but not to rent. I've seen some things where, more seasoned couples, when they do that, they keep their home, and they kind of go back and forth. And it's like, wait, how do you live in two places? And they're like, well, sometimes you want to be by yourself. You want to, not have to worry about being bothered when you don't want to be bothered. but that's not why you get married. And getting married and being with that person is not a bother. And if it is, then you need to recognize, why did you marry them in the first place? If you are married and the person that you are married to, you find them to be a bother, if that's the word that you use, then you might want to reconsider that whole situation, because that's not a good thing. I know there was a guy that I know, and he was asking me, like, my thoughts on that. He said, what do you think? And he was, I want to say, newly married relative. And, he asked what were my thoughts on keeping his place as well as, living with his wife. He said, because, sometimes I just want to get away. And I'm like, what? If you, if, first of all, you haven't been married that long to, at this point so early, want to have those feelings of wanting to get away. And there's different ways of getting away without having a whole nother house, and if you want to get away that bad that often, then you really need to consider what kind of relationship you really have. Is this the right one? Because if it is the right one, you're going to want to be with them more times than not. You really are going to want to make sure that they are safe, and the only way to know that is if you're with them. I'm telling you, I have three young adults, and when all of them are under the same roof with us, I feel so much more safe. So I can only imagine being in a marriage and not being under the same roof. I would, feel like, what's going on? What is he doing? What's happening? Those thoughts. There's no way that you can be stress free, knowing that your spouse is not vacationing, not visiting, but living in another place. So but that's after. So what the Bonics were talking about was about, should you get live together before marriage? So that's the question that I have for you. For me, I say no. But again, some people may look at that as being old fashioned, or that's not the way of the world today. But I still believe no. I think, marriage is much different than just dating. And some people look at the wedding as the marriage. You know, they'll call the wedding the marriage, and it's not. A marriage definitely takes more work, it's more intentional. It's not a easy break for a reason, because you should be able to communicate and work through the challenges that you encounter. And even if you do go through premarital counseling, even if you both have similar values and goals and things like that, you'll still have some barriers that you'll come upon in your marriage that you need to work together to get under, over, or around. It's no other way. And it will take both of you. If one of you is pulling the other, that's going to be a heavy load. So, it's definitely a process that you have to work together through. And, if you are living together, a lot of times people think that mimics marriage, and it doesn't. It just means that you live together, because when you are just living together and you're not married, you can walk away clean slate anytime you want to, unless you're commingling your finances or your responsibilities, your assets, your liabilities. But otherwise, you can basically wash your hands at the end of the month and be like, we out. But when you're married, it's not that simple. And so I think some people, they um misinterpret the two and think that they are similar, which is another reason why sometimes when people live together before marriage, they typically will live together for years and years, thinking, well, we live together. What else do we need? Both our names are on the lease, both our names are on the mortgage. What else do we need? They don't see the value of the marriage certificate, of going through that process, because and maybe they had the good intentions in the beginning, and that's why they said, oh, you know what, let's just live together until we get married. We know we're going to get married. And then once they get married, and what they deem as being married, commingling the finances and all that, they feel like, well, this is what marriage is. We doing it, so what we need that other piece of paper for? And that's, I think, where the shortcomings come. And then you find yourself 20 years later, and maybe you decide this is not it, and you're 20 years later though, and now you're breaking up because it's that easy, and it's 20, but it's 20 years later, you're 20 years older, and you look around, it's like, man, I spent 20 years with that person, and I really don't have much to show for it because we never made it official. And I'm out here now, and what's going on? So I think those are some things to consider if you are thinking about living with your future spouse before getting married. You don't have to be as old fashioned as me, but if you do, I think if you have a date, if you know that this is the person that you're going to get married to, and a lot of people will say that, oh, I know this is who I'm gonna marry, but unless you actually are engaged and you have that date, then is that the person that you're going to get married to? I know a lot of people get engaged and they get the ring and they think, okay, yeah, we're going to get married, and they'll be engaged for years. I know people that have been engaged for 5, 10 years, and it's like, what are you waiting for? What's going on? And it's always one thing or another, oh, somebody in our family got sick. We wanted to wait because we wanted them to be at the wedding. Oh, we had an emergency. So the money that we saved up for the wedding had to be spent on that. Or, the timing just wasn't right. That's why, listen, I got engaged in May, at the end of May, one year in 1994, and I knew my husband was leaving in July for camp. So before he left, like that month of June, we were looking for a place, making sure the date of the place and our church lined up, and make sure it was a good time of the year for us, for his career and everything. And we set our date that next month, so we got engaged at the end of May. By June, the mid June, we had the date, which was February of that next year. So we got engaged May 1994, and we were married in February 1995. And that's how you do it. If you wait and wait and wait, like you get the ring and you just wait and just say, oh, we're gonna get to it, you it's gonna be hard to get to it. So you have to get to it while the getting is good, while it's still hot. We had our engagement party in June, at the end of June, and then he went to camp in July. And again, we were married that next February. So you want to have it scheduled out. It doesn't have to be that quick or that timely. Maybe you have to save up, and budget it out and everything like that. And that's fine. But understand, what is that timeline, and just start getting the ball rolling, because getting married is more than a ring. The wedding part is one thing. And what type of wedding do you want? Do you want to have a big wedding? Do you want to have a small wedding? Do you want to have a destination wedding? Do you want to just go to the courthouse? What type of wedding do you want? And whatever that is, start planning it right then. Don't wait, because if you wait, the longer you wait, then the more excuses will come up, and the longer you won't do it. You know, it's interesting when I see people or get invitations to weddings. I'm so excited because it's like, okay, cool, people are still getting married. That's what's up, because I don't see it as much anymore. And now, I have three young adults, and it's interesting to see a lot of their friends are getting married now, that they went to high school with, that they grew up with. And it's like, I guess it's right. My kids are at the age that I was when I was engaged, when I got married. And so it could happen, but I definitely don't want them to rush it. I don't want them to look at it as the thing to do. Oh, all my friends are getting married. Let me hurry up and find someone to marry, someone to be a wife or be a husband. No, that's not it either. Definitely do it on your own, at your own pace. But don't not look for it. Don't run from it. Don't act like you can't get married and have your career. I know I had a dear friend And again, I got married, I was 25 years old. And I remember her saying, "Oh, that's too young. I want to get my career together. I want to make sure my career is straight. So I don't think I'm going to get married till about 30, 32 maybe. And then I want to have 3 kids and have my kids by 38 and basically like live happily ever after in that way." And it didn't happen that way for her, you know? She dated some amazing men, some great men that, really, really cared for her, but for whatever reason, she wouldn't let them get but so close. And when she turned 30, they started looking at women that were 25, 27. And she was 32, then she was 35, and wasn't getting anyone serious in her corner. And she ended up having a baby at she was like 39, because she wanted to have a baby before 40, but she still, wasn't married. She had a great career, but the way her timeline for her personal life, it didn't line up. So you really shouldn't put a timeline on your personal life. Even if you say, I know a lot of men want to have a certain amount of money before they get married, but guess what? Sometimes with that wife as your biggest cheerleader, and as your teammate, both at the same time, you might even find that your career will propel even further, because you will have that support. You won't have that pressure of trying to be, somebody that you're not, or somebody that you're striving to be to impress somebody, because you have somebody that loves you for you and not for what you have. And that person is willing to work with you to get you to that next level, because getting you to that next level is getting themselves to that next level too. So, be thoughtful of that, you don't have to wait until you've arrived to, make that person your spouse. It can take some of the pressure off, having that sure shot person home after, you've maybe worked on a big project, or, you know, was so busy at work for whatever reason, because you're trying to promote, and trying to figure out who you're dating or what you're going to do. That's one less thing you have to worry about if you are already married. So I know that is something that is a concern for a lot of people with their careers. But again, I had that friend that was trying to wait, like, oh, I'm gonna build my career, this, that, and the other. And sometimes we make those plans, God laughs at our plans. So if you meet up with someone and you're very compatible, you love each other, you respect each other, you have the same goals and thoughts in mind of where you want to be in the next 3, 5, 10 years, see how you can work that thing out and make it official. It doesn't have to just be your boyfriend for the next 5 or 10 years until you get to that plan. No, work that plan together while you are, still young in it. And I love to see that. I know I have a dear cousin. I call her children my niece and nephews, and that's basically what her daughter did. She was still developing her in her career, and so was her boyfriend at the time. And they both knew that they were mature, they were career driven, they loved family, they wanted a family of their own, they enjoyed each other's company, they respected each other. And it's like looking around like, yo, what are we doing? And they got married. And she had her own apartment and he lived at home. And they got married and had gotten a bigger apartment that, they're combining their finances, so they were able to afford it. And then a few years after that, like 2 or 3 years, they purchased a beautiful home in a suburb area. And then shortly after getting the home, they got pregnant and had their first child, who recently turned 1. And so, together they're doing this. Now, if they were just dating, there may have been things that came up that would sway them one way or the other. If they weren't married and maybe even weren't living together, The opportunity to meet other people may have occurred. It's so many things that can happen if you aren't already married when you start commingling your lifestyle, your living arrangements, your day to day. So I love that. And they are a young couple. I think maybe they might be 30 now, or getting ready to turn 30. So they're still young, and that's what I'm saying. You don't hear of stories like that. You don't see that too much anymore. But I think that is worth it. It's definitely worth it. Sometimes seasoned individuals that may not have um gotten married, and then as they age and get older, they wonder, like, wait, what's going on? What am I going to do if something, I don't have that partner? Not saying that you have to, you absolutely don't, but sometimes it makes it a little easier in life. But again, I was talking about the living arrangements, and I want to know your thoughts. So if you are in the chat, if you can let me know, if you are listening to this replay, let me know, what are your thoughts on living arrangements? Do you think you should live with your partner before marriage, or do you think that is do you feel that you would prefer after? I mentioned, for me, I think after marriage is the best, but it's not the only. The best for me was that, but that doesn't mean it's the best for everyone. And I know everyone has their reasons for doing it in different ways, and I totally respect that. I This is a topic I wanted to put out here because it's not something that is necessarily spoken to. I don't believe that I've had this deep conversation with my three young adults. Like, some things that you do or don't do in life is, it's kind of ingrained in you without it being said to you. um you just have that innate feeling that, I don't think that I'm going to do this because I'm not sure how. I don't think this is the right thing for me to do. But no one's ever told you it wasn't the right thing for you to do. No one ever said it was the right thing to do. You just have that feeling that it's not really what you're going to do. And so even with this, I have never had this conversation. I really don't think I have with my children. Now, I've had the conversation of what I did, for my life, but I never told them what to do. I never said, I don't prefer you to live with a person that you're dating. I never said that. But they haven't. And if they did, I wouldn't think bad about it. I would ask them, what is the intention? Is this someone that's going to be long term, or is it like a roommate type of thing where it's kind of month to month or year to year, or you're trying something out? Is it temporary? What's going on? But I wouldn't do it in a way that is judging them. However, I wanted to make this video so that in the future, if they ever happen upon it, or it might be their children's children that happen upon it, to just kind of hear my perspective on it. That's all this is my perspective. So we all have perspectives according to the experiences that we've had, the choices that we've made. And so this is my perspective of on living with your spouse before marriage. Again, I don't think anything of it for other people, but that's how I am with a lot of things. Hey, if that's what you're doing, that works for you, that's how you rocking, cool. This is how I rock over here. And that's cool too, I hope. I hope that there's no judgment on this end either. Because we all live the life that we have to live in order to get ahead, in order to move forward, in order to be our best. And who are we to determine how you should move in your life? There's many reasons why people choose to live together. Again, I said it could be financial, it could be support, it could be a lot of things. And I get that. But, I just know also that sometimes that can prolong the actual commitment. And some people look at it as this is my commitment, and if that's your thoughts, then that's so be it too, and that's fine. But at any rate, I just wanted to come on here. I haven't been live in a minute, and I said, let me go on here and just to give my perspective of what the Bonics were saying. I really enjoyed their channel. I hope you all have an opportunity to check them out. They have some really good topics. They do some great blogs, especially their vacation blogs. I really enjoy them. They go to some dynamic places all around the world, and I appreciate the way that they share their content. They're just trying to have some good, clean fun, and that's all that we all really want in this life. So, um, and I appreciate them for sharing their worlds with us. So, thank you to them, and thank you to you all that are in here and either in here live or in the watching this on a pre-record. Yes, it is one and only. There are a lot of factors involved. It is a challenging thought. That's why it's almost on a case to case, really depending on what the situation or the circumstances are at that time. But I do know, you know, um, if you do it, if you can have some deadlines of when will the next step be, or what is the next step. Sometimes, I mean, I know that a lot of people too nowadays, especially, they kind of wing things, like wherever the wind blows, it is what it is. And we just in the moment. I don't know, I don't want to think that far ahead, and I get that too. um, but life is short and life is small. The world is smaller than we could ever imagine. And it's also about not using yourself up, because you just never know. You might live with somebody and it doesn't work out. Heck, you might be married to somebody and it doesn't work out. And then you're on to the next. But that next somehow is connected to the person you were just with. So a lot of decisions that we make, we have to understand that it may impact us negatively or positively, hopefully positively in the future. So we have to definitely, you know, see if it's a financial thing, if it's a time thing, if it's a support thing, what is it? It's a lot of factors that are involved for sure. But I appreciate you for being here, for jumping in and giving me your perspective on that. And for those of you that are looking at the replay, if you don't mind putting it in the comment section. And again, this channel is growing, and I appreciate the ones that have been rocking with me since day one. And I have so many new people that have joined the team that are like, listen, I'm a starter too. I want to be an all-star. And for joining the team and subscribing to the channel. If you're not yet subscribed and this is your second, third time coming in, be sure to hit that subscribe button and the bell for notification. If you enjoyed hearing more about this topic, give me a thumbs up. I appreciate that too. And day one, I see you. Who next? SEO. How are you doing? It's good to see you. I hope you're doing well. Listen, it's late. I know it's late. I was out. One of my sorors came into town. Well, actually, five of my sorors came to town, and I have not seen them in years. And I can actually pinpoint, I know exactly when the last time I saw them, but they were in town to celebrate one of their birthdays. And it was so, so good to see them. Oh my goodness. And so we, broke bread and talked and laughed and reminisced and talked about all things going on in the world, and it was just really nice. So the one whose birthday it is, it was her family's home that we were at, and it was just so nice to see all the love, that they have for her. I think family love is so important, and being around it is very healthy. It's a good thing. Yeah, happy birthday to her. She her it was her stepmother's house, and the stepmother made two homemade cakes for her birthday. One was a chocolate icing, chocolate cake, and the other was vanilla icing and vanilla cake, but the vanilla cake had a slight almond abstract to it, and it was so delicious, and the chocolate was very fudgy. It was just really good, and they had lots of food, and a lot of people went on the back deck and was smoking cigars, and I love cigars, but I didn't smoke one. I can't anymore. But it was just good to be in the number and fellowship with them. And you need that. You when you can, and when people come into town, especially when you live far from family and friends that play significant roles in your life, when they do come around, it's good to be around them so that you can glean on their energy. And we were talking about one of our other sorors that went to school with us too, and she lives down here, and I actually saw her on Friday. Yeah, on Friday I was a keynote speaker at a graduation. She's the head of an organization that has a training program for the trades. And I was a keynote speaker at the graduation, and she's such a happy person. Her energy is so dynamic, and they know her too. And they commented on that because they saw her Thursday night, and they were like, "Wow, she's so happy." And that's what you want. You want you want that, and to be around that, it gives you that energy. It makes you happier to see someone, living in their purpose, enjoying what they do, and just having a good time doing it. There's some people that are, enjoying what they do because they're good at it, but they're not necessarily having a good time, while it's being done. So to see all of that come together for her was amazing, and it is amazing. And I love being around her. Her energy is really high. And so that's a good thing. But yeah, so after, being with them and everything, I said, you know what? I'm going to go live. I haven't been live in a minute. Let me just hit that go live button and let it do what it do. And I'm glad I did. So this has been my Saturday Night Live, the topic living arrangements. And I hope that you all gleaned another way of thinking about certain things, different perspective, or, maybe it's the same perspective that you have or you don't have and don't agree with. Either way, I appreciate you for tuning in. All right, everyone, that's all I have for you tonight. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your evening and enjoy the rest of this weekend. It's going by fast, just like this year is. It's almost Christmas. All right, take care. I am Coach Sherry.